this festive, frightful fight featuring Marvel Crisis Protocol. And we have for you today Blade and the Midnight Suns taking on Dormammu and the Dark Dimension. Threats being played today include alien ship crashes in downtown, and demons downtown has our comeuppance come due. We're playing 20 threat, and we'll show you the squads next.
The spirit of Halloween and vengeance. The Ghost Rider. The man without fear. Daredevil. The vampire hunter who was born ready. Blade.
The witch doctor who speaks to the dead.
Dr. Voodoo. No Halloween bash is complete without a black cat.
Tactics cards available for the Midnight Suns include Seance, Deal with the Devil, Highway to Hell, Bats the Ghost Hound, and Siege of Darkness.
From the Dark Dimension, Dreadlord Dormammu. This guy always prefers the trick. The Green Goblin. The Midnight Suns are in some toil and trouble with the Scarlet Witch. And Hood.
Team tactics cards for the Dark Dimension include Dark Empowerment, Dark Restoration, Hood's Gang, No More Mutants, and the Whims of Chaos. Here is today's board with the objectives set up in a cross. We have 3 rubble piles on map C, and then our 3 flaming portals on map E. We will come back with deployment and then jump into the game from there. So the Midnight Suns have deployed with Ghost Rider on the left, then Daredevil, Dr. Voodoo in the center, Black Cat on top of the building, and in the alleyway is Blade. And our Dark Dimension has Goblin on the left, Scarlet Witch and Dormammu in the center, and off to the right hand side is Hood. So we had Ghost Rider getting off to a quick start. He just did his 2 movements to get within 1 of that rubble pile, and he spent a point of his power, but he was unable to find anything as he just rolled 2 blanks. So then for the Dark Dimension it was Dormammu, and he just advanced up the board doing his 2 medium movements to get within 1 of the center flaming portal, and within range of that power core, and he's rolled his die, but was unable to find it. So then we had Blade, and he just did his 2 medium movements to get within range of that rubble pile, and he spent his power to roll his 2 die, but was unable to find the Kree power core. So then we had the Green Goblin, and he decided to do his 2 advances towards the center to help out Dormammu, and he paid a point of power to try and interact with that rubble pile, and he was also unsuccessful in finding the power core. So then it was the man without fear, Daredevil. He just did 2 long advances to try and interact with that rubble pile, and he was also unable to find the Kree power core. So it was then Hood, and much like everyone else, he did 2 advances to get himself within an interactive range of 1 of the rubble piles, and he spent his power, and he has found that Kree power core. So he will also be taking a point of damage at the end of his turn, as he's got no more actions to be able to do an attack. So then we had the Black Cat, and she just did 2 long advances to tuck herself behind the taco truck and just make sure she was out of range 3 of the Hood, so she has her stealth. And to wrap things up for the Dark Dimension was the Scarlet Witch, who just did her medium advance to stay within 1 of their back flaming portal to secure that victory point. And to finish things off in round number 1 was Dr. Voodoo, and he just did an advance to get within their own flaming portal, but to make sure he was out of 4 of Goblin and Dormammu. Here's how the board is looking at the end of round number 1. The Dark Dimension are holding 2 portals, the center and their own, and also the Kree power core on Hood. As for the Midnight Suns, they just hold their own flaming portal. At the end of round number 1 then, the Midnight Suns will be scoring 1 victory point, whereas the Dark Dimension will be scoring 4, due to holding 2 of the portals and that Kree power core as we head in to round number 2. So during the power phase of round number 2, both Green Goblin and Scarlet Witch will be suffering Incinerate as they are within 1 of the flaming portals. Dormammu and Dr. Voodoo are both immune. So to start things out in round number 2 was Hood, who just did a hex shot into Blade, the first one dealing 2 points of damage, and he did get the rapid fire. However, on that one he only rolled blanks and skulls. And so just to try and get himself a bit of distance away from them, he's just decided to move medium towards his buddies. So then we had Blade. He did a medium movement to get within range 2 of Hood, and he just did his katana into him, but rolled really well and got 5 damage, being able to daze him. Before Hood dazes though, he does transform into Hood Possessed, so that's going to be placed within 1, as you see him there. And then the Kree power core was dropped within 2 of Hood Possessed. So then Blade had to spend 1 point of power for Bump in the Night to move himself within range of the Kree power core. And then he's paid a point of power to pick it up. So Blade unfortunately did make himself a target. So Dormammu spent 3 power for Not of This Dimension. He moved within 2 but made sure to stay out of 2 of Blade should he not take him out. But he followed this up with some Shadow Bolts into Blade, the first one getting through for 2 points of damage with a Wild, so he sapped a power and inflicted Hex, and followed this up with another Shadow Bolt. This time it dealt 6 damage, so Blade has been dazed, dropping that Kree power core, and now it's in the hands of Dormammu. So then we had Black Cat, and she did a long advance to get within range 1 of Dormammu, and then did some cat claws into him. She managed to get a pierce, so she dealt through 2 points of damage. She gained 2 power, which was enough for her to spend 3 for Master Cat Burglar. So she has claimed the power core off of Dormammu, and she'll end her turn holding on to it. So Scarlet Witch has moved up the board to be able to target Black Cat with one of her Hex Bolts. But Scarlet Witch has suffered a point of damage to play Dark Empowerment, so that Hex Bolt will indeed boost Dormammu with some power. So that Hex Bolt did do 3 points of damage to Black Cat, which meant that Dormammu has netted himself 3 power. And then Scarlet Witch decided to do some telekinesis, picked up Deadpool's taco truck, threw it into Black Cat for 3 more damage, so she's dropped the power core, and Scarlet Witch paid her last remaining power to pick it up. So then we had Ghost Rider. He decided to do a medium movement and then did a Chains of Damnation into Green Goblin, who's only rolling 2 defense die as its energy. And he got through for 3 points of damage. And then Ghost Rider just spent 1 for Bump in the Night to get within securing range of the center flaming portal. So then we had the Green Goblin, and he started things out by paying his power for a Knight of the Goblin. And this dealt 3 points of damage and the poison and incinerate to Ghost Rider, and he followed this up by throwing some pumpkin bombs for 2 points of damage, and he gave him the bleed condition. For the Midnight Suns was Daredevil, and he just did 2 long advances to get himself within 1 of the Dark Dimension Dark Portal, so he'll be securing that at the end of the round for the Midnight Suns. So then to finish off round number 2 was Dr. Voodoo, and he spent a point of power for Bump in the Night. He advanced himself within 1, but still within 1 to secure that back flaming portal. But he was within range 3 to fire a Spirit Venom into Green Goblin, and it got through for 4 points of damage. So Goblin has been dazed. And Dr. Voodoo did have a second action, but there's not a lot else he really wanted to do, so he just stayed right next to that flaming portal to secure that for the Midnight Suns. So this is how the board looks at the end of round number 2. The Midnight Suns have claimed all 3 of those dark portals, and the Dark Dimension are holding on to that power core with the Scarlet Witch. So at the end of round number 2, the Dark Dimension go up from 4 points to 6. As for those Midnight Suns, they go up from 1 to 4 due to holding those 3 flaming portals, As we head into round number 3, flipping their cards will be Green Goblin and Hood for the Dark Dimension, and Black Cat and Blade for the Midnight Suns. So during the power phase of round number 3, suffering Incinerate is indeed Daredevil, and also suffering points of damage are Green Goblin and Hood, as they both have more than 6 power, so Dormammu is hurting his own team. So it will be the Dark Dimension, but to start things off, Scarlet Witch is paying her 2 power for the Whims of Chaos. So with those Whims of Chaos, she has given out Incinerate to both Black Cat and Blade. So to start us off was the big man himself, Dormammu, and he did this by paying 5 power for an incantation of obliteration into Blade, which got through for 1 point of damage. However, he did get the requirement to do a second one via Dark Miasma, and this going into Black Cat, and that dealt 5 points of damage, so she has been taken out of the game. Dormammu followed this up with a Shadow Bolt into Blade, and he got a Wild, dealing Hex and Sap power, and 1 point of damage. Dormammu then spent 3 power for Not of This Dimension to move within 2 to get himself within contesting range of the Center Flaming Portal. So the Midnight Suns then felt it necessary for a Siege of Darkness, and paying 2 power was Dr. Voodoo, Ghost Rider, and Blade. So Dr. Voodoo started out the attacks and did a Spirit Venom into Goblin, which got through for 1 point of damage. And then Ghost Rider followed up with a Chains of Damnation, this also only dealing 1 point of damage to the Green Goblin, but he has hexed him. And down on the other side, Blade did some throwing glaives into Scarlet Witch, and this dealt 3 points of damage to her. So for the Midnight Suns, they decided to go with Blade, as the Scarlet Witch was just left with 2 points of health remaining. He did a throwing glaives into her, which only dealt 1 damage, so he had to do it a second time, and this time it would have dealt 3, so she has been dazed. She dropped the Kree power core, and Blade picked his power to pick that up, before paying another power for Bump into the Night. He's moved away 1, and then he's also done his Half-Blood Physiology, paid 2 power to shake both his Hex and Incinerate. So then we had the Green Goblin. He decided to advance towards Blade Medium, then paid 3 power for a Glider Ram to throw himself into him, and this dealt 3 points of damage, leaving Blade with just 1 health remaining. And then he did a Knight of the Goblin, into Blade, and this would have dealt 2 damage, so Blade's been taken out of the game, and he's dropped that Kree power core within 2, but Goblin can't hold on to it due to his unstable psyche. So then we had Ghost Rider. He did a medium movement to get within range of doing a Chains of Damnation into Green Goblin, and this only did 1 point of damage to him. Then Ghost Rider decided to spend 3 for Hell on Wheels and did a long move to AC him, so he was in range to pay a power to pick up that power core, and he'll be taking a point of damage from his bleed at the end of his activation, leaving him with just 1 health remaining. To get that 1 point of damage through, Ghost Rider paid 2 for Bats the Ghost Hound, changing one of his die to a hit to deal 1 point of damage to Green Goblin, who will get KO'd next round due to Dormammu's claims of the Faultine affiliation leadership. So then we had the Hood. He did a medium movement and then spent 2 for a charge, which he followed this up with a Razor Talons into Ghost Rider, which got through for 3 points of damage, dazing him. As he was dazed by the Razor Talons, Hood transforms back to Hood normal, so he's transformed within 1, but Ghost Rider dropped that power core, so Hood spent a power to pick it up. And then as he's back to being normal, he spent 3 for Black Arts, and he's healed 3 points of damage off of Green Goblin, so he's only had 1 on him now, but he is suffering bleed. For the Midnight Suns was Dr. Voodoo, and he just did 2 medium advances to get within range of Hood, and then he has used Possession, paying 3 power, as that is Hood's threat level, to give him the Brother Daniel token. That means he drops the power core, so Voodoo was within range of Hood, and he paid a power to secure the core for the team. Dr. Voodoo, though, will be taking a point of damage due to making no attacks during his activation from the Kree power core. And then Daredevil just decided to stay where he was to secure that flaming portal for the Midnight Suns. So here's the board at the end of round number 3. You have Dormammu claiming the center flaming portal for the Dark Dimension, and Dr. Voodoo holding that Kree power core for a point for the Midnight Suns, and then Daredevil at the bottom of the screen holding that flaming portal. So at the end of round number 3, the Dark Dimension will be getting 1 victory point, taking them to 7, and the Midnight Suns will score 3 victory points, taking them from 4 to 7 to tie the game as it stands as we head into round number 4. Flipping the cards is the Scarlet Witch for the Dark Dimension, and for the Midnight Suns is Ghost Rider. Taking a point of damage during the power phase of round number 4 is the Green Goblin and Hood, due to Dormammu's leadership. So it's Hood going first for the Dark Dimension, and he started things out on his turn by paying 3 power for Black Arts to heal Green Goblin back up to full health. Hood followed that up by playing Hood's Gang, so they can reroll 1 die during attacking anyone with an objective, such as Dr. Voodoo. So Hood followed that up by doing a hex shot into Dr. Voodoo, which he blocked. He did get a rapid fire, so he shot into him again. And again, Dr. Voodoo blocked it, rolling his skull, so he gained a point of power. And then Hood decided to do some Dark Lightning, and this did get through to Voodoo's defenses, dealing 2 points of damage to him. So then we did have Dr. Voodoo up for the Midnight Suns. He started things out with a Spirit Venom into Hood, and this dealt 4 points of damage, which is more than enough to take Hood out of the game. Dr. Voodoo then followed that up by retreating Medium, taking that power core with him and getting within 1 of that back flaming portal. So then we had the Green Goblin, who did a medium advance, followed by a glider ram, hurled himself into Dr. Voodoo, who blocked the incoming damage. Goblin then did a Knight of the Goblin, spending his 3 power, and this got through for 2 points of damage, leaving Dr. Voodoo with 1 health remaining. And then at the end of his activation, Goblin has taken a point of damage due to his bleed. So for the Midnight Suns was Daredevil, and he decided to do 2 baton hooks into Scarlet Witch. Only 1 of them got through for any damage, and that was just 1 point of damage. He did get a wild, but he chose not to push her towards him, as if she wants to secure that objective, she'll have to make that advance herself. So then it was the Scarlet Witch, and she decided to do a Hex Bolt into Daredevil, and she insta-dazed him, dealing 5 points of damage. So then she decided that she did want that back flaming portal and advanced Medium to secure it. So then we did have Ghost Rider, who decided to advance Medium towards Green Goblin and did a Chains of Damnation into him. And Goblin was able to block the incoming damage. To finish off with round number 4 was Dormammu, and he decided to do a medium advance to get himself within striking range of Dr. Voodoo or Ghost Rider, and he decided to do a Shadow Bolt into Voodoo, who blocked the incoming damage. So here we are at the end of round number 4. You have the Dark Dimension claiming 2 flaming portals, and then Dr. Voodoo holds the other portal and that Kree power core. So during the cleanup phase, the reason why Dormammu didn't use a Knot of this dimension to do 2 attacks was so he had the power to pay 6 for Dark Restoration, and he'll be bringing Hood back into the game. And Hood has been brought back within range 2 of Dormammu and within 1 of that flaming portal. So at the end of round number 4, the Dark Dimension will be scoring 2 victory points, taking them from 7 to 9. Whereas those Midnight Suns go from 7 to 10 for holding the Kree power core and that dark flaming portal. As we head into round number 5, flipping their cards is Daredevil for the Midnight Suns. And during the power phase of round number 4, Scarlet Witch is going to be taking a point of damage due to Dormammu's leadership, as she is sat with full power. So during the power phase, suffering Incinerate will be Scarlet Witch, the newly reincarnated Hood, and Daredevil. So the Midnight Suns thought the course of action would be to take out the Scarlet Witch, and Daredevil threw 2 strikes into her. However, only one of them got through for any damage, and that was just 1 point, dealing with a stun condition. So it was the Green Goblin for the Dark Dimension, and he started things out by paying his power for it. So then it was the Green Goblin for the Dark Dimension. He started things out by glider ramming into Dr. Voodoo, dealing that 1 point of damage necessary to daze him. So he's dropped that power core back there, and then he decided to throw 2 pumpkin bombs into Ghost Rider. The first got through for 2 damage and incinerate. The second for 3, decided to give him the bleed on that one. And then Goblin has taken a point of damage due to his bleed at the end of his activation. So then it was Ghost Rider, and he just decided to do a Chains of Damnation into Green Goblin, and that cut through for 6 points of damage, so Goblin has been taken out of the game. And then Ghost Rider didn't really want to do a lot for his second action, so he just stayed where he was until he bled out. So as he was bleeding out, Ghost Rider decided to make a deal with the devil, spending his 4 power, and we'll see whose soul he takes over. So Ghost Rider did indeed make a deal with the devil. The Daredevil, as he is, returned from hell, claimed his soul, and has reappeared right next to the Scarlet Witch. So it was just a very short return trip for Ghost Rider, as the Scarlet Witch started things out by paying 6 power for Cruel Twist, in which she dealt 4 damage to him. So she decided to follow this up with a Hex Bolt, and that got through for 3 points of damage. So Ghost Rider has been knocked out once again. So Hood was up for the Dark Dimension, and he just did a medium movement to get within secure range of the Flaming Portal, and within range of that Kree Power Core, paid his power, and he'll be picking it up. Hood will be taking a point of damage though, as there is no one left on the board for him to attack. And then Dormammu, he just decided to stand tall in the centre of the board, holding on to that middle Flaming Portal. So here's the board at the end of round number 5. The Dark Dimension will be scoring all 5 victory points due to holding all the Flaming Portals, and Hood holding onto that Kree Power Core. So at the end of round number 5, it is only the Dark Dimension scoring as they go up from 9 points to 14 due to holding all 3 portals and that Kree Power Core. As we head into round number 6, will be Dr. Voodoo flipping his card, and we'll see if he's got anything in that bag of tricks to try and pull it back. So I've just looked at how things stand, and there's actually no way that Dr. Voodoo can win this game, as regardless, the Dark Dimension are probably going to score at least 1 point, and even if Voodoo holds onto that power core and claims a portal, he'll only be getting 3, so he'd still be behind them. But we're going to roll some die and see what Dr. Voodoo could possibly do to try and make it a little bit closer. So, suffering Incinerate will be Dr. Voodoo, but taking a point of damage will be the Scarlet Witch thanks to Dormammu's leadership, leaving her with just 1 health remaining. So Dr. Voodoo is getting things started off by performing a seance. So we'll get to roll 2 extra die for any crits he rolls whilst he's got Brother Daniel on him. Or his opponent does not add any die if he chooses to attack them. So we did go with Dr. Voodoo, who spent 8 to possess Dormammu. Then he decided to attack into Hood with a Spirit Venom. Dealt 2 damage, Hood transformed to possessed Hood. A second Spirit Venom only dealing 1, so he would transform back to normal Hood. But that's all Dr. Voodoo had in him. But he would have made it so Dormammu couldn't claim an objective, and if he'd have been able to take Hood out, he could have secured that core for 2 and held that back portal for another 1. So he'd have definitely made it a bit tighter, but he was not able to pull it off. So there we have it. Even if the Dark Dimension just decide to stay where they all are, they are going to secure 5 points once again. So that'll take them way past the 6 necessary, which would be 19. So they've been able to defeat the Midnight Suns. So there we have it. The Dark Dimension have managed to win this festive themed battle as they defeated the Midnight Suns. It took them all 6 rounds, but it ended up being quite convincing. I certainly hope you've enjoyed watching. If you have, please feel free to subscribe. Speaking of festivities, I'm hoping to get to 100 subscribers by Christmas. We're currently on 83, I believe, so 17 to go. I'd like to feel it's doable. So all that's left to say is thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.